Hey everybody, today I'm out here in Southern Washington with my friend Jason Fenske from Engineering Explained, and we're going to try and figure out which fun weekend car is right for you. But these both are daily driver designed, right?
Yeah, I would say they're both practical friendly, probably this one more so than the Miata, but you could live with either feasibly, I think.
I do like both of them. I've always said that I like the Miata because it's softly sprung. Even though this is the sportiest version, it's still comfortable. The driver's seat could use a little bit of work in my opinion, but it's fun, rear-wheel drive, drop top. And then we have this option right here. Tell us about the Veloster.
This is Veloster and 2-liter turbo, so it's got more horsepower than the Miata, probably about 100 more horsepower at the crank. Yeah, so 275 versus 181.
Let's pop the hoods so we can see what's going on under there.
Turbocharger in the back, so you have the air intake up front. Try to keep this section cool, try to keep all the hot stuff towards the back, and then send that heat outward.
So under this hood, we have a naturally aspirated 2-liter 4-cylinder, and it is installed in the correct direction under the hood, right? So, you know, north-south, fair to say. Rear-wheel drive, obviously. This one has a 6-speed manual, or we can get an automatic if you choose. And this is
2,340.
With the hardtop?
With the hardtop, 2,450.
Stretching Jason's memory here.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe definitely heavier on the Veloster.
550 pound difference or so.
But that's because not only do we have a real roof here, but we also have a third door. We can have a real world driving test, seating test here.
I can fit here.
Oh, okay, yeah, see, that's not too bad. My head is touching the ceiling, but hey, you know, you could carry 4 people to work with this. And, you know, let's see how that goes in the Miata. Now on the downside, Miata's very lightweight mission means that that's the cup holder. Yeah. And we get 2 choices here. We can put the cup holders behind the driver's elbow, so that way you can
That's a great, very intuitive,
bash your drink right there. If you have a longer arm, you might end up hitting your drink. The glove box is here as well. That is the glove box.
So we can demonstrate that if you were to have a drink right here, well, then you can't really open the glove box.
And then if your passenger has the option of putting their cup holder on the passenger side right up front, but then the passenger's knee bops that one. But I have to say, Mazda's dedication to lightweighting is really impressive, because this is lighter than the all-carbon fiber 4C from Alfa Romeo, and that is fantastically expensive to build. And this is a regular metal car.
This is the lightest car designed to be fun to drive. So there are cars like a Smart 4 too, which weigh less, but they're not supposed to be fun to drive. Or maybe they probably are actually still a little bit of fun, but this is actually supposed to be fun. I mean, this is 1,000 pounds lighter than the new Supra.
Yes, it is considerably lighter than the Supra. But now we have over here, we have a relatively lightweight subcompact vehicle. Interesting point of trivia for our fans, this is closely related to the Kia Soul. So when they were designing the 2 vehicles together, Kia decided they wanted the boxy one. Hyundai said we want the funky 3-door hatchback. But we have a big trunk back here, 19 cubic feet. So 4 times the size of what we find in the Miata. So you can have weekend fun and weekend luggage for your fun.
Yeah, I mean, as far as practicality, the Hyundai's really going to win in pretty much every way. You can fit more people, you can fit more stuff, you can fold down those rear seats, and you've got a ton of space.
Look at the size of those exhaust tips there. Those are cool.
Yes. Undeniably cool based on size.
So demonstrate this top for us, because that is obviously the thing that the Veloster cannot do.
You got it. It cannot put the top down, and that's kind of really the advantage. I like the soft top more. I think this looks great top up, but you don't really get the visibility benefits when you put it down.
As you can see, we get a powered hardtop. It's a multi-piece top, so we have 1 piece there, 1 piece there. Rear window folds down, but this large buttress section stays in place, and that's because we don't have a huge trunk in the Miata. But it did surprise me. The trunk does not really shrink too much for the hardtop versus the soft top. It's like 1/10 of a cubic foot. Oh. I am just not as skinny as Jason, so I tried this earlier, and my childbearing hips just had troubles getting. There we go. Could squeeze it there, but you could not close the lid. Let's see if Jason can fit in the trunk.
I have not given birth to a child, so as a result, my hips are slightly smaller. I think I'm going to try a different strategy here.
Oh, this is getting, oh my goodness, oh, almost.
Wait,
better
try
not close it
again.
because we
Try
might not be able to
again.
open it.
Try one more time.
Oh, we are so close, yes,
I don't
but
think
for
it's gonna
safety's
work.
sake, we're not going to latch it. We probably could though. You might have some permanent
might have a
indentations
hole
on
in
your
my
back.
back.
So, not quite a 3-seater, but you know, if you're Jason, possibly
Honestly, super comfortable in there.
not as convenient as the third door, however. I'm going to toss some numbers out, and then Jason here is going to tell me why I'm wrong.
Yes.
So the Miata is 500 pounds lighter than the Veloster, but it has wider tires. So 235 with tires on that one, 205 with tires on this one. And my recollection is that these Potenza S001 tires are not as grippy as what we find on the Veloster. So tell me why, even though this gets a lower skid pad number, I thought another number out there for you. This one, according to Car and Driver, we don't have access to a skid pad. They do. This one got 0.90 on the skid pad. Veloster and Performance got 0.97.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to come down to the tires. So those Pirelli are for the performance version of the Veloster N. So there's two packages. This has the performance bespoke tires that come. You know, they are Hyundai unique, and so they were specifically designed to be a nice performance summer tire. Versus this is a bit more of kind of an all-round summer tire, and it kind of gives it a bit of a more playful nature. Now, as far as the widths of the tires, I don't really think that's that critical of an aspect to kind of compare them. Reason being, this car weighs 3,000 pounds, this is at 2,500 pounds. So if you compare the width ratio, maybe this is 6/7 of that ratio versus this car is 5/6 of that weight. So as far as the contact patch itself and how much weight it's actually carrying, the Miata may be about even or have a slight advantage there. And if you want more grip, tires are a simple thing to change out.
Here in the Veloster N, things definitely feel more special, more differentiated, I would say. You know, from the regular Velosters, we have these buttons on the steering wheel. We've got, you know, an active exhaust system. We have an active suspension system that can be configured. And we don't find those sorts of things in the Miata, but we do actually in something like a BMW M product. Kind of feels like that in a way.
Yeah, so the Miata is kind of a one-size-fits-all approach where you don't get that many options, and they go with what they think is, you know, kind of the purest form of the Miata experience versus this Veloster N, where there is quite a bit of customizing that you can do as far as settings, as far as the steering feel, the suspension feel, and then even the exhaust notes. You can put it in that N mode and get all those crackles out the back, which is nice. You know, the Mazda, you're not going to really be bragging about how it sounds ever, or super stoked about how it sounds, versus this is nice, practical little pops going on. Practical, the incorrect word, but they are actually functional pops that it has. So I was speaking with Bierman, the engineer for this car, and he was saying that they actually do try to create a bit of an anti-lag system with those exhaust crackles. So functional and sounds cool.
Yep. The exhaust note is one of the things that I really love about the Veloster N, because it does have that crackle. It gets those excellent rev match downshifts, which are fun. And the limits of this car just seem easy to explore compared to a rear-wheel drive vehicle. It's one of the sort of benefits, I guess you'd say, about a front-wheel drive vehicle. It just tends to be a little bit easier.
I would agree in that the limits are pretty easy to explore in this car, but I would also counter in that I would say that the Miata is a pretty easy car to drive, and part of that is just it's fairly low power. So the limit isn't super extreme, and you can get out of hand, you can get that rear tail sliding out in the Miata if you're, you know, kind of approaching a corner incorrectly or giving it too much power. And it's harder to do in this, but I think both of them are very approachable cars as far as driving quickly.
And as we go down this road, you'll definitely notice the suspension difference. I was laughing there because we hit that bump, and we definitely get that sort of short wheelbase bobblehead thing going on in here. Which Mazda's done a really good job quelling, because the wheelbase is really not longer in the MX-5.
It's very short.
It's very short still. But this definitely has that feel, and I am in the softest suspension mode, so I'm really glad that this has the custom mode, so I can have the rev matching, I can have the pop and crackle, I can have the engine noises, but I can have the soft suspension, because let's move it here into sport, into N mode, and this really is a very firm suspension in a small car like this.
It is.
And I've discovered that this can actually reduce overall handling ability really out on real paved surfaces. So if you're not on a track, you're probably not going to want N mode. And of course, the N mode is coupled with reduced stability control, and I love my nannies, so we'll turn that back on. But we also get the choice between normal and regular sport mode, and an eco mode if you suddenly decide to be eco-friendly, I guess.
You're absolutely correct about the suspension setting, and I think that's a common thing that people don't quite understand, is that on public roads like this that you're driving on, a softer suspension offers more mechanical grip because it maintains the tire's contact on the ground better.
Yep. You're not skipping like a pebble.
Exactly. So on a track, yeah, that firm suspension's just fine, but out here on normal roads that we all drive on, the softer suspension of the Miata does a better job of holding those tires on the ground.
Just doesn't do as good of a job of sounding like that.
It does not sound as good. It absolutely does not.
And I find the interior a little bit better laid out. I mean, you don't have a huge hump right there next to your left leg.
Yeah, I do think they have a better infotainment. Both you can get CarPlay with, correct? And,
yes,
and Android Auto.
God.
So yeah, thankfully there's that, because I don't think either of them are particularly great infotainment systems, but you know, if you can connect your phone and...
This one does have all of our little G-forces and power and turbo, and you can click on the app if you're not driving apparently and see some of these things. Apparently
You're
we're not
being
supposed to use
unsafe.
performance timers, etc. But you can adjust the custom mode while driving. That must be safer. I don't know. But it does give you a bit more to look at visually, a little bit more of that, video game-like entertainment. So in terms of steering feel, the two vehicles definitely tend to be different. I don't think we get as much feedback from the front tires in this vehicle. It's a common complaint really with front-wheel drive suspension designs. But also the steering is definitely heavier. Now it is adjustable, we can adjust the weight, but someone always told me a while back that you should never confuse steering weight with steering feel. So just because it's heavy doesn't mean that we're getting more feedback from the front tires.
Right, so effort required versus what is the road actually doing, and am I getting feedback, communication from the tires to my hands? And so I think the Miata does a really good job of that. I honestly don't think the Veloster N is too bad. I think by today's standards it's a pretty good steering system, but you certainly notice the difference in weight and effort required. Very high for the Veloster N and not too high at all. Pretty low steering effort for that Miata.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this is the steering effort's definitely on par with the GTI, Honda Civic, etc. But none of these vehicles really have the kind of feedback that we used to get in a first-generation MX-5.
True.
I do find this turbo engine just absolutely incredible. It's almost psychic. It delivers excellent power, very little turbo lag. There's still some, but again, as we said earlier, not too much torque steer for a front-wheel drive vehicle, but it doesn't build that power in that linear, predictable fashion that we see in the Miata.
Yeah, and second gear in this car really is a riot. And it's fun in the Miata, but you don't quite get the torque that you have in this thing. And it's pretty cool in second gear, just kind of cruising around a twisty road like this.
And the nature's just different. I mean, if I'm going to be lazy, I could just leave this in sixth gear and I still have enough torque to climb a hill. I can leave it in fifth gear, lug the engine. And the Miata, you really do have to rev the nuts off of it in order to really accelerate. What is that thing redline at? 7,500
now, I believe, is current redline. So they upped it, I think, 700 RPM from the previous engine, so 2019. A little bit more power as a result of increasing that redline and a bit more free-flowing airflow through the engine.
So if you really like the sound, and it is a really smooth engine, has a good sound up there at 7,000 RPM. This one, I mean, it sounds nice, but it definitely, even in the quieter exhaust modes, if I put it here in normal, it doesn't sound quite as refined at 6,000 RPM as the Mazda.
Yeah, it's the exhaust that gets you with this one.
It does.
The exhaust is great.
So we're out here on this lovely drizzly day with our top down, as one does in a convertible.
Yeah, why not?
And tell me how you really feel about the convertible-iness here.
Well, as I've mentioned, I like the soft top better because you get a better all-around view of what's going on behind you, and this kind of keeps all the hardware. But some of the nice changes that they've made, particularly for tall people for the 2019, is that the steering wheel is now telescoping. So I am 6'1", I have long legs and not that great of a torso, and as a result, I'm still not hitting the steering wheel in this versus the previous generation. I would hit the steering wheel when shifting. So it's nice to have the space as someone who's 6'1" in this tiny, tiny little car, and I appreciate that about it.
But we should tell everybody that we are about max-sized people for the MX-5 still. Like,
yes.
if I was much taller, or you were much taller, I'm 6 foot tall, but I have a slightly longer torso. My head is definitely feeling the breeze here. You know, we're any taller, you'd just sort of be looking at this roof line.
Yes, and that's kind of another small advantage for the soft top, is that there's slightly more headroom in it versus the RF.
And that's a really easy to use soft top. It's a one-handed operation, grab from behind.
It's super fast, yeah, and you can do it at any speed because it's all just mechanical, so.
So the main reason to get the MX-5, in my mind at least, is the purity factor. Naturally aspirated, rear-wheel drive, manual transmission, ultra lightweight. The MX-5 has never been about, and Zoom really, their previous tagline has never been about fast. It wasn't zip zip. It was about this precision, the feel, the handle, etc.
Yeah, this car isn't about outright speed, and we focus so much today on horsepower.
More power!
When, you know, if you're to kind of take a list of what are all the things that make a car great, well, one of those is acceleration, sure, and other factors are steering, the response that you get from the engine, which doesn't necessarily correlate with how much power it makes, what the braking feels like, what the handling feels like, and so very often what's the case is that when you increase horsepower, you sacrifice other elements about what makes a car fun because it increases the weight. And so in a car like this, as you mentioned, manual transmission, rear-wheel drive, two-door, just fits two people. You know, it's a pure driving experience, and it's something we don't get that much of today. So I really appreciate it.
It's worth noting that on the passenger side here, there is an enormous hump.
There is an enormous hump, and that's not super cool for the passenger. You get that intrusion on your space.
And the lightweighting does mean lightweight seats, less comfortable seats, less adjustable seats.
Yeah, I actually prefer their cloth seats over these Recaros. And I also think, you know, as just far as a comparison, this is the more expensive car, yes, but I do actually think that the interior shows slightly better than the interior of the Veloster, and neither of them are going to blow you away. But I like the touch with the paint on the interior here, and it's a kind of clean, simple appearance in here, and I feel like it's just a bit more tacky within the Veloster N.
This is another area where I have to say that Mazda's really impressed me, because if you step inside that Alfa Romeo 4C, we don't have a touchscreen infotainment system. We don't have any soft touch materials. We don't have a glove box. We don't have anything going on in there. And it's still heavier.
Yes. And it's got a carbon fiber tub versus this is using aluminum, perhaps steel. I don't know what all of it is. I think it's mostly aluminum though.
So sure, it's like there are compromises in here, but you can tell that Mazda is still a mainstream car company, and they still were designing this for that customer that, you know, may also have a Mazda 6 or a Mazda 3 and want something that's livable.
So some of the things that I feel like this does better than the Veloster N, one of the big ones is the shifting. I feel like the shifting feel in this is better, and I also feel like the clutch pedal control is better in this, where the Veloster N, it's a very narrow spot where it's just engage, disengage, and this gives you a bit more control as far as slipping that clutch, and it's a smoother operation shifting between the gears.
I'm kind of okay with the clutch in the Veloster, but I agree on the shifter. But that's because this shifter, it's actually moving the forks in the transmission with this lever right
rather
here.
than cables doing the work.
And just because of the design of a front-wheel drive car, it's not possible.
Yes, though to be fair, I feel like the Honda Type R has one of the best shifters out there, and that is a cable-driven front-wheel drive vehicle, and they have just knocked out of the park as far as the shifting feel. Another thing, you know, I do like that the Veloster N has downshift rev matching, so that's nice. And, you know, the difference though being is that this has what I feel like is a better pedal setup, the spacing for them. So if you really want to get some fancy footwork in, I feel like it's easier on this Miata, but you're forced to. You don't have that option of the rev matching. So I think it would have been cool if they included rev matching with the Miata. You know, not everyone's into that, so if you're not, you can turn it off in the Veloster. In this, there's no option to have it. This also has a bit more free revving engine, so when you get on the brake and you go to downshift, it's very quick that you can get that throttle to come up, versus the Veloster N, there's a bit more delay to get the throttle and those RPMs to rise with the shifting.
But of course in this one you have to do that
because
we don't get the same kind of torque profile that we get in the Veloster N. So Jason, I have one last question for you. Okay. If your own money were on the line, and this is a two-part question.
Yes.
Of the cars available in front of us right now, which would you choose? And if you could choose your ideal version of either, which would be your choice? Would that affect it?
That's the ideal version of that car, but
This
there is a
right here.
common saying in the Mazda world that Miata is always the answer. And that's true, Miata is
But
always
you have
the
an
answer.
S2000, so the Miata was not your answer.
I sold my S2000, and
Oh.
in a review 3 years ago, driving the Miata, I declared it was better than my S2000.
oh.
So yes, Miata would be my choice. I am not thrilled about this spec. I think it's a bit expensive and it's a bit heavier than what a Miata should be. So I would go with the club version, manual transmission, soft top, takes out about 10 grand and is a lighter car and has greater visibility looking around once the top is actually down. That said, as far as fun for the dollar, this Veloster N is very hard to beat. And as far as, if you were to compare, do you want front wheel drive or rear wheel drive? That could be a decision maker. And as far as front wheel drive cars go, this is about as much fun as you can have per dollar with a front wheel drive vehicle.
And I would pick the Veloster because I think this is a better all-around vehicle. The theory behind both of these in my mind is it's the car that you can have fun in, it's the car that's the daily driver, so it's relatively efficient, it's fun, it's relatively practical, so you can do that commute in it. I would get the Veloster. It is a hoot and a half. It's less expensive than that one as equipped there. And even though I like the drop top format, I would get the extra door and the cargo capacity and the lower sticker price for this particular one.
Just one extra door.
Just one extra door. Yeah, you don't want to get crazy. You don't want to have four.
You don't need too many doors.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't want to have that many. I also like the fact that this is faster 0 to 60. So 5.2 seconds 0 to 60 in this one, according to professional drivers.
Yeah, it is noticeably quicker.
5.7. But here I have to say that, remember, we're talking about professional drivers, and if all of you out there have watched our reviews, you'll notice that this did not go 0 to 60 in 5.7. This did not go 0 to 60 in 5.2 because I am not a professional manual transmission driver, and so my 0 to 60 time was slower.
And I think another disclaimer to add on top of that is these engines go about making power in very different ways.
They do.
So this is turbocharged, this is naturally aspirated. So there's a very different feel from a driving perspective. And as far as like a pure, nice throttle sensation of like it does exactly what you ask of it, you're going to get that in this car. As far as more acceleration, you're going to get that in this car.
Definitely. And I kind of like a little bit of turbo lag because I like that like, instant whoa pedal that you get there. You press for it, wait for it, and then hang on, here she goes.
I don't like waiting for anything ever.
That
so
is
I'm
somehow
against it.
strangely fun in the Veloster, and really very little torque steer in this thing, which I was really surprised by too.
Super impressive. And I actually spoke with the engineer about that on this, and I said, is it going to have torque steer? Because it's got 275 horsepower going to the front tires. And he said, we don't care about torque steer. Maybe it'll have it. And so I thought, okay, surely it's going to have it. And then I drove it, and it
doesn't.
didn't.
Yeah.
So Hyundai is just humbly not admitting that they have eliminated torque steer from this car, and they don't even care to say anything about it, which I respect.
And I also wonder if accessories and repairs are going to be less expensive on the Hyundai than the Mazda. It does have a longer warranty, which is handy. Miata's been around a long time though, so there's a lot of stuff for it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think this is kind of a simpler engine. It's lower pressures within the engine, so there are kind of reasons why you could see it going either way.
My personal philosophy would be I would Veloster N because even with my manual transmission driving, this should be faster 0 to 60 than Grandma in a Camry V6 or in a Honda Accord 2.0T. And we were talking about this earlier in the day. I was giving Jason a little bit of a hard time that the Miata here,
it's a real sports car.
It's
an enthusiast.
I'm told it is a real sports car. It's an enthusiast, enthusiast car. But 5 seconds with the professional driver 0 to 60. If you recall, on our official 0 to 60 scores, the RF trim here ended up at around 6.2, which is half a second slower to 60 than a Camry. So Granny at the stoplight may smoke you.
I think what we learned there is that Camrys are fast. A V6 Camry is fast.
They are fast.
Cars today are very fast. This is quicker than an all-wheel drive Dodge Challenger. This is quicker than a 2010 V6 Camaro.
It's true.
It's quicker than an Acura Integra Type R. So it's an improvement, but comparing it to today's vehicles, where all we care about is 0 to 60 times, which I feel like what we should care about is weight.
Yes.
But I feel like...
But this is an open question to all of you watching down there in the comment section below. Let me know, is it possible for a vehicle to be a performance car or a sports car, whatever you want to call that category, and be within 0.2 of a second of a Toyota Camry in terms of acceleration? I don't know the answer to that question.
I do know the answer.
I do not know. I would generally lean towards no.
Well, the actual answer is yes.
Jason says yes. Anyway, let me know what you think about that down there in the comment section below, and be sure and check out Jason's channel, Engineering Explained. Tell us how else we can find you.
You can Google Engineering Explained. You can
just Google J-Man.
Instagram Engineering Explained. You will not find me on Snapchat. So
you can also find Kick Dancer. You know,
Kick Dancer. A little.
There we go. Yep, you can Google that one, and you will definitely find Jason.
Right on.
Anyway, let us know down there in the comment section below, and I will see you all next week. I want to give a quick shout out to the Automotive Video Association. Alex on Autos, along with Redline Reviews, TFL Car, TFL Truck, Engineering Explained, and Matt Moran Motoring were all founding members of this association. And without this particular group, we wouldn't be able to have access to the cars we've had access to this weekend up here in Washington, and we wouldn't be able to get cars like this back to back or together for combined videos. So be sure to check out those other channels and see their takes on the same vehicles that we've been able to drive this weekend.